So who knew that calling the cops when your family is threatened comes from a place of privilege?
What if, in the middle of the night, my home is broken into? Who do I call?
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege.
What an idiot. That was the president of the Minneapolis City Council, who's planning a formal vote to defund the police. So after days of unrest, that's their next step. If you do not believe that we are in the middle of a mass delusion where humanity is willfully rejecting what works for what destroys, I don't think I can help you. But if you can't beat the mob, why not help them? Let's defund. But baby steps first. It's too expensive to start from scratch and create a police-free city. So let's pick 2 cities and observe the outcomes. Because the Minneapolis City Council is voting to defund already, let's go with them first. And for comparison, let's do Hollywood, where some celebs who signed an open letter demanding defunding actually live. The comparison eliminates race from the equation and sits it squarely on something else: wealth and class. While citizens of Minneapolis will fall prey to chaos and roving gangs of violence, last week being the prequel, Hollywood will rely on private security, which many of its fabulous inhabitants already enjoy. It's why John Legend and others see no problem in defunding, because it won't be a problem for them. At least with Minneapolis, the hard-left zombies on that council are ready to see their delusions through. Citizens be damned or killed. Let's see Hollywood do the same thing. And when the rich do fine while the poor suffer, maybe that injustice will be televised too, in color, not just black and white. So Dana, here's a question. If we can defund the police, which we believe, we used to believe they were essential to governance, why can't the entire government be defunded? Because what's more essential than the police? It's not our senators. It's not our congressmen. Why not across the board?
If you think
shrink
about
the government.
Remember back in, I think, junior high, back in our day, you learned Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what is the very first need on which everything else depends? Security. Okay, so there's one thing that we all learned way back. We probably learned it in kindergarten, too. The other thing is, Minneapolis has said that it needs about $45 million. They're asking the federal government for help to deal with all the damage that happened. But why should the federal government provide Minneapolis with that kind of support if they're going to try this experiment of dismantling the police? I think that the federal government should probably wait on that. The other thing, Greg, that I thought was pretty interesting is that you see that the media, some in the media, are already trying to help the left deal with this defund the police slogan. They're saying, well, it actually needs more context. It doesn't actually mean that. Okay, well, where have we seen this before? It's like when they put out the Green New Deal. And it was like, they want to do what? And then people are like, well, actually, no. What it really means is they're just going to tinker around the edges. What about believe all women? Oh, wait, no, we don't do that either.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one I thought about? Ban corporate money from campaigns. And yet they all take the corporate money. So at some point, the progressive left is going to figure out that the establishment Democrats are just ignoring all of their slogans, partly because they're nonsensical, but also because they don't believe them.
Right. You know what it is? John Oliver has become the spokesperson for the cathedral. He's the one that is now explaining all of these issues as not really being what they are. So when you hear Juan, you hear defund the police, which sounds incredibly unreasonable and stupid. Then they retreat to a position that sounds reasonable by comparison. It's a very sneaky strategy. Oh, we don't mean that. We mean shifting it to the youth at risk. We're just shifting funds around. But that's not what they originally said. They're doing this by cover. And I know you agree.
Huh. No, I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, so something like, I think, by the way, defund the police makes no sense to me, so I reject that out of hand. But I hear the slogan.
Thank God.
I hear the slogan much like I hear the slogan, build the wall, drain the swamp, on the right, it stirs up the right-wing base. It never happens. It's not going to happen. But it stirs up some in the political extremes. Okay.
Walls
but, to me,
built,
it's a non-starter. Oh, please. Thank you, Jesse. I hope you believe that. But it seems to me there are reforms.
I can see it with my own eyes.
That we can't. Yeah, I see it too. I can see right through it, in fact. But I think that what we can embrace, and it's not just far left. It's like 60% of Americans say that the police use excessive force in dealing with black Americans. You hear a very conservative Senator Lindsey Graham saying there's a problem here. And so in this congressional bill that was put forward today, you see some realistic reforms that are embraced, or can be embraced by the likes of me anyway. Things like bans on chokeholds, increased use of the cameras, the body cameras and the like. No more no-knock warrants like resulted in the death of Breonna Taylor. These are logical and good steps. And the idea that you would have more officers taken away from dealing with people who have mental issues or drug problems or youth that needs help, it seems to me those are rational, good steps for America to take.
Yeah, the only problem is that nobody's actually helping the mentally ill, at least in our cities, and the police are often left with that burden. I would like it shifted to mental health professionals, but that never happens. Katie, if we actually defund the police,
we agree.
The upside to this, the upside, Katie, there's an upside, the privatization. And then the fact that we could roll back gun control laws, because if we're no longer being protected, we got to protect ourselves.
Well, and Greg, doesn't that really expose the way that they operate? I mean, it's just so illogical. So first they advocate for gun control so that you can't defend yourself and tell you to call the police. So once then they've disarmed you, they then get rid of the police department and say that you're on your own and that if you call the police, it's part of your white privilege. And therefore you essentially deserved whatever was going to happen to you when someone broke into your house late at night. So that's the first problem. I have some friends, longtime friends, Justice and Drew is their show in Minneapolis. They have a local radio show. They call it the Minnesota City Council for this very reason. But the bigger picture here is that this isn't about justice. But yeah, the City Council, this isn't about justice. This is about social justice. And you have to think about what this means. Police are there to enforce the laws that are passed by representatives, whether it's the state level or the federal level. Those representatives are voted into office by the American people, by citizens who choose who their leaders are to put those laws on the books. If you don't have police enforcing the laws, then everything is up for grabs in terms of people's feelings, what is actually justice based on skin color and class, and nobody's actually equal under the law anymore. So this is a bigger question of what is the end goal here of tearing down the entire system, not just, quote, defunding the police or implementing some kind of reform. If you don't have police to enforce the laws that are passed by representatives of the people, then everything starts to break down pretty quickly.
Yeah, Jesse, it's no surprising that it is the left side of the government that only is dealing with one half of the equation, the police. They're going to solve the police problem, but not the criminal problem. They don't see that if you just remove that, the criminal problem actually gets worse.
Yeah, I mean, everybody sees that except, well, I won't name names, but just to mention something Juan brought up, 450 miles of the border wall has been built, according to Politico, Mr. Williams. Also, yes, the swamp is being drained. That's why Comey and all his merry band of nitwits got fired, okay?
Yeah.
Now, the real point is this. Liberals have had a lot of dumb ideas. But this might be the dumbest. Take a position that the whole country agrees with, that this death of George Floyd was a horrible thing, and then do 3 somersaults backwards into a position that 90% of the country disagrees with, defund the police. Dan is right.
Yeah.
They did it with the environment. Everybody wants clean air and water, but they say, let's spend $100 trillion and ban airplanes. They did it with, they've done it with everything. And so if you take away the police, who's going to protect the cities? The guys with the guns. Who has the guns? The gangs have the guns. So you're going to now have to pay a fee for a gang to protect you. It's called a protection racket. That's what happens. And all of the people that are calling the police when their home's burglarized, who are they going to send? Not a police officer. They're sending a social worker. That's in the fine print of this defund the police movement, whatever that's going to do. And if you look at the police in terms of these inner cities, a majority of the police officers are actually black in a lot of these big cities. And a lot of the police chiefs in these cities are black too. And where do the union dues go from the police unions? They go to Democrats. So the Democrats are just hurting themselves with this politically and in terms of public safety. And if they want to go, let them do it, because everyone's just going to flee the cities and buy guns. The two things Democrats say they don't want to have happen.
All right.
Greg, I know you got a tease. Can I make one point?
Sure.
I just wanted to remind everybody, in New York City, Mayor de Blasio is saying that he is going to reduce funding for the police, and he wants to put it into more things like education and dealing with mental health. But if you'll remember, it was actually the New York City government itself that had to admit that de Blasio's education program, of which they spent almost $1 billion, they can't figure out any program that actually was benefited from that or did better. And also when his wife did all of that work on mental health, they had to admit that they basically wasted $1 billion on that too. So I'm not sure that New York should fall for that.
Yeah, I think he's going to still keep the police detail when he goes to his gym in Brooklyn.
Probably.
The worst mayor in the history of the world.